Welcome back to another video, guys. As last week discussed, we're going to be changing out the thermostat, and today we're going to be going through the how to change the thermostat. The thermostat housing is located on the passenger side of the engine down by the alternator. So first step in gaining access is going to be jack the car up and pull the tire off. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Alright, so with our wheel off, you'll see that there are some rivets that are holding the splash shield on. We've already taken this off one time for the carbon scoop, so if you haven't seen that install, there is the how to remove this. But just in case, there's there's one hiding in the back here, there's one up there, and then there's two in the front. So go ahead and remove those. That'll pop the splash shield out, and we'll see what's behind there. So from the top here, we can go ahead and see two of the bolts that we have to back out on the alternator. These are 12mm bolts, one right here, and one off to the side. You see this shiny area right here, that's because the bolt's already backed out. So those are the two you can see from the top. Now we're going to move along down to the side where there's a 14mm. And as you can see right down here, there's a 14mm right there. You can see attached to the alternator that has to be backed out as well. That'll loosen up the alternator and allow us to move that out of the way to get to the thermostat housing. So, alright, so Tony's over here. We got some leverage on the bottom 14mm bolt. Something to keep in mind, the 12mm on the top is shorter than the 12 on the side that I'm having trouble getting hand tight, but this one's a little bit longer on the side. Trick to get it loose, you've got a pivot. Go ahead, Tony, take over.
Yep, you're just going to go ahead and get extensions. Get the pivot on there so you can get the right angle when you're going through. Then a wrench or a pipe, slide over your ratchet, so it's going to be positioned like this. You can stick it, boom. To get a little bit more leverage, and then torque it down and it'll break loose. That's if you guys are struggling to break it loose. Sometimes it might be a little easier, but with it probably not been removed ever since you guys probably purchased the vehicle, it'd be an idea to get a little bit more leverage on it to break it loose.
So with that out of the way, we will be moving the alternator here momentarily and hopefully gaining access to the thermostat housing.
Okay, well, after we had gotten the mounting bolts to the alternator removed, we kind of forgot to undo the battery because you got power going to your alternator. So you just want to go ahead and disconnect your battery from its power source, or disconnect the power cords from the battery. Back there is going to be a hard angle to get to, but there is a nut that has your wire that is holding
the cable onto it. It's a 10mm nut, and it didn't take much to get it loose. So at this point, I'm just kind of unthreading it with my thumb.
Then right below that power cable there, that's your alternator, you do have a connector. You're going to go ahead and pop that connector loose.
So as you can see right down in there, that's the stud that was holding onto. So there's the rubber cover that we were talking about, and now down there you can see the connector for the alternator. Go ahead and disconnect that. That should be the final step of loosening up the alternator. So at this point we have removed the under trays. That's going to allow us to put a catch can down here for any coolant that comes out from the thermostat housing, water neck, whatever you want to consider it.
It's probably going to be all the coolant out of the block.
So there's going to be a fair amount, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a catch can down here and line it with rags. That way we can hopefully catch most of it beforehand. Doubt that that's going to happen. That's probably going to drain everything that's in there, and that's going to be that. Side note, as anybody will tell you with a Lotus, when you've got it jacked up this far, you might as well do an inspection on everything else while you're down there. Make sure there's no preemptive cracking in the hoses. Check for leaks. In this instance, I noticed that the filter had a little bit of oil dripping down the side, so we went ahead and tightened that up. And then other than that, just kind of the obvious under checks here. So let's get with the actual thermostat replacement, and then it'll be the reassembly. We've got the alternator removed. At this point, this is what the inside looks like. Squeeze in here. Oh, and you can see back there barely the thermostat housing. Still looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to get to. Let's go ahead and try pointing this out. Here's one nut right here. The other one is down lower. So this is where your thermostat is. All this to get to it.
Right, so right here we have 2 studs with a nut on it. What you're going to do is break these 2 studs loose. You got one right here, one below right here. It's a number 10, so you're going to go ahead and break that loose. Break them loose, unthread them, and as soon as you start wiggling this whole water neck, the coolant is going to start pouring out. So be ready for that. Make sure, let your vehicle cool off for a while, let it sit. You know, you don't want to be fucking dealing with hot coolant because you can't get 3rd-degree burns from it. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and break this loose. Let whatever coolant we can. Some people would like to do a fast switcheroo, but because we do not know the orientation of the thermostat, how it sits in there, we're going to have to try to figure that out. So we're probably going to have a ton of freaking coolant coming out. So yeah, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do that.
That's quite a bit. It is splashing everywhere, so we're going to go ahead and try our best here to re-situate these. Not working too well, but...
Alright, ladies and gents, you see the orientation of the thermostat now. Looks like you got the the whole body of the thermostat is going to be sticking in the block. So with that said, I'm just going to break it loose, pull it out, make sure to keep the orientation correct, and it looks like Eric is correct. The seal is not functioning. It popped out.
Yeah, boy!
Yeah. Alright, so that's the orientation that needs to go into the block. So you got your block right here. My hand's the block. The orientation of the thermostat is going to go straight into the housing like so. So, that being said, that is a thermostat, and I don't know if you can see, this is Eric's issue. He's got coolant passing by. It's not allowing it to seal properly, so of course the motor does not warm up. Your whatever you want to call it, I don't know.
The temperature on the gauge, you know, as you guys saw in last week's video, what led me to believe this was the gauge readout was not appearing, and then when it was kind of intermittent. And in all honesty, doing the research, my signs pointed towards it being the thermostat. And this is exactly what I thought it was going to be, which is the seal was popped out, just allowing coolant to continue to pass through, not allowing the motor to heat up the way it's supposed to. If you guys are getting intermittent readings on your cluster, or if at times you drive for 10-15 minutes and it doesn't come up at all, it could be the thermostat. Now, I'm not saying that all the time, but signs point that, you know, that seal is starting to pop up and allows the coolant to flow right through at all times. And Lotus actually does recommend replacing these every 2 years. I don't know that I will every 2 years, but it's recommended by Lotus.
Also, just make sure that everything also is correct based on the part that you're going to put back in. Looks like the temp reading is 82 Celsius, so everything is there, same identical markings and everything, same style setup. So we're going to go ahead and just install the seal back on and go ahead and pop it back in.
And then the other thing that I'll touch base on is what coolant to use. Lotus Cars USA does recommend Peak Global Lifetime Coolant. So that is what we're putting in it, and this is concentrate, so we'll have to dilute it as we put it in. But $15 at Napa for the concentrate. That's where people had suggested to get the coolant from, was Napa, and I went there and they definitely had it, which is great. They also have the Lotus recommended oil. So anyway, guys, and then obviously the install of the thermostat is completely opposite of what we did. So the other thing that we did that we didn't show in the video was disconnect the injector harness. We disconnected these two and then removed this bracket completely to allow us to get in there. So
The reason we took it is that this bracket actually bolts up to the intake manifold, so there is no way to have the alternator pivot back and forth to be able to get it off of this bracket. So once you break the other bolt loose in between the intake manifold tubes, you'll be able to get access to that bolt and be able to break that loose. And what we did to break loose the alternator is we took an extension with a socket on it, put it on top where one of the ears of the alternator is, and just hit down. As you continually hit down, it will come out of, it's a J-style bracket. It will eventually pop out and you'll be able to take off the belt, and you should be good to go from there.
And that will get the alternator completely removed. Some people are able to just move it out of the way, but we figured it'd be easier if we just took it completely out and then put it back in.
With that, you can either remove it through the top side right here and be able to pull it out because it is small enough. But what we ended up doing is just going through the wheel well. There's plenty of space there. There was the AC lines that sit off right into here.
AC lines right in there that you can see.
We were able to push the hoses aside and pull it through.
So if you guys found the video helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe and like button. I know there's not a whole lot of you that are going to end up using this video, but if you ever wondered what the hell it took, or what coolant Lotus takes too, you know, we covered that. This video had a lot of information for you guys between how to remove an alternator from a Lotus, how to remove a thermostat from a Lotus, what coolant thermostat takes, and then it also confirmed the problem from last week, which was intermittent temperature readout for a Lotus. So there's definitely a lot of information here. Be sure to hit the subscribe and like button to catch more content from us later. And I thank you guys for tuning in.
Don't forget to wear a safety helmet today. Cut my head. It fucking hurts.
We'll see you guys.